That's the field we're looking at developing. Unfortunately, the photograph doesn't show the rest of the site, but I've got in a few slides time, which will show the sort of the site as a whole. So by way of an introduction, obviously Pembrokeshire County Council has commenced a programme of housing developments to meet the demand for affordable social housing in the county. The site at Bryn here will provide affordable homes in Tenby to meet the current and future needs of local people. And I believe Andrew is going to talk about the need in the local area after. And the development, as with all of our developments, will support the principles of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, Wales 2015. So that's the site. It's accessed off Narberth Road. So we've got Saundersfoot off one way and back into Tenby the other way. The access road in the LDP, the site access road was off Sperricombe Lane, which is what this shows in this plan. Since we've done our ecology surveys, we're going to move the site access road into the adjoining field because the Sperricombe Lane was identified as being a route for bats. So we've taken on board the advice of the ecologist and we're going to move the access road in. The site you can see is bounded with the red line. The hatched blue area is the development zones where we will be locating the houses. Around the perimeter of the site is an existing public right of way. There are a couple of public rights of way across the site, which we won't be affecting. And then the green area is a 5-metre ecological buffer zone, which we will be retaining throughout the development. I'll talk about that in a bit more detail shortly. So as part of the outline planning application, which was submitted and approved, we signed up to a Section 106 agreement with the National Park Authority. And as part of that agreement, we have agreed to provide 102 affordable homes. Now, with the term affordable, I think there's a bit of not a misunderstanding. The term affordable refers to a council-owned property, which is obviously providing affordable rent for people. So these won't be low-cost homes for people to buy. They will be council homes. So 102 affordable homes, 34 open market homes for sale, and 8 shared ownership homes. We have yet, and we'll be working through that in due course. Also, as part of the Section 106 agreement, we will be providing a minimum of a 5-metre ecological buffer zone around the perimeter of the site. So this will incorporate the public right of way, and within that zone, we will also be looking at incorporating some ecological and biodiversity enhancements to create a nice circular walk. Also within the Section 106, we will be providing a locally equipped area for play, or a LEAP as it's referred to, a multi-use games area, and we will develop a local lettings policy as well. For the houses on the site, we've got a pattern book of standard internal layouts which we've developed over the past 3 years, just to provide some continuity with all of our houses. The houses will achieve or exceed Welsh Government's Beautiful Homes and Spaces guidance. That's the newly published document that used to be called Design Quality Requirements, or DQR. They'll also exceed the Lifetime Home standards, and they will achieve a Secured by Design Gold standard. This is in liaison with the Police Design and Crime Officer. And we also will include elements of dementia-friendly and RNIB best practices, such as having contrast colour light switches, colour-coded zones for the houses for people to find their way around more easily. The properties will all be designed with a fabric-first approach, and they will be highly energy efficient. The properties will achieve net zero operational carbon. So during their life, when people are in the houses, they should be net zero carbon. So the development we're currently working on at Cheers Cross, we've got air source heat pumps, photovoltaic panels on the roof. We've got no mains gas going to that site at all. So with the fabric first approach, we won't be relying on technology. We'll try and make the building as insulated and as well built as possible. We're going to investigate the use of modern methods of construction. This is something that the Welsh Government are massively pushing at the moment. So we're looking at off-site fabrication, so possibly having buildings which are built in a factory off-site. The benefits of that are far greater tolerances in construction. It's far safer for people to work on. A lot less waste is produced, and then also it speeds up the production for the delivery of the site as well. We've used some modern methods of construction for schools recently, using what's called SIPS panels, which is a structurally insulated panel, and that's been quite successful. But I think for Bryn here, we will investigate looking a more modular type construction. And also the properties will be designed to require minimal maintenance during their life. To do this, we will specify high quality windows. The windows we've specified and fitted at the Cranham Park development, for instance, have got a 60-year design life, so they should exceed the traditional UPVC window by about 3 times. Obviously, they cost more, but over the life of the building, they don't need any maintenance. Also specifying colour through renders, which don't need painting, just need pressure washing. So you haven't got to get operatives working up scaffolding to paint the buildings every 5 years. It's far easier to look after, and also using cladding systems where appropriate as well. So the journey to date for Bryn here, we started in October 2018, gathering constraints for the site. So that was undertaking topographic surveys, looking at utility information, land ownership records, and archaeology. Moving on to January 2019, we appointed consultants to prepare an initial site layout. And then later on in 2019 in March, we appointed WSP to in May 2019, we undertook some preliminary site investigation. To the setting. A detailed delivery program. I've put some indicative but they are subject to change. So that's all from me. Is there any questions at all? Because the site is going to be secured by design, all of the properties are going to have a standard fence around the site. We originally looked at incorporating SUDs around the site, so it'd be like an open ditch. It sounds horrible, but some sort of infiltration trench around the site for drainage, which would form a natural barrier with a hedge bank, and then the fence to the gardens behind that, perhaps. But we haven't got anything definitive established yet.
What I've done is look at the waiting list as it stands at the moment, and also look back to January 2019 to give a bit of a These are based on households that are on the waiting list that are currently living in 10. this is going to obviously inform the mix that we're going to be doing. But what we are also aware is that the mix of housing that will be going on there, we can't just focus on one bed need, because obviously we potentially be creating a tenancy management issue by just supplying one bed. So it does have to be a balanced community, especially when it's of a size of this nature. But there's the types of maybe shared housing that can meet a vast range of needs across the board. Just in terms of self-build properties in those numbers, they're not affordable as it stands, but we can look at potentially some self-build so that those market properties are more affordable to people with Welsh Government on their self-build. There'll be the socially rented properties, there'll be some shared ownership properties, which we're working on the product, as Chris mentioned, and there'll also be some self-build in there as well, hopefully. Residents to take advantage of. Usually what happens with a new builds is that and the town council, so that on the initial let, you put in a big development into a particular area, you don't necessarily want people from the entire county being able to access that in the first instance. We'd be looking at obviously trying to deliver against the need that there is in the local area. Accessible housing register for those people in most need, but usually we'd follow the same approach that the housing associations take about a kind of a local lettings policy on initial lets.
There'll be a separate allocation policy just for this development in Tenby, but we are looking at changing the allocations policy as a whole anyway. But it's, we'll be guided by all the sort of consultees in this about how you want that local lettings policy to look, whether you want it restricted in the first instance to Tenby or just for Penally, etc. When we met with the town council, they were quite keen to extend that out because they know that there are people in those areas who are possibly from Tenby and have had to move out because there isn't the availability of homes in Tenby, and they were quite keen that it wasn't restricted just to Tenby, that it was extended to the the villages outside of Tenby. But that's something that we'll work with local members and the local community and the town council on when we develop that.
In terms of the drainage, I'm just trying to pull up the information now. I know we did consult with Welsh Water very early days as part of the outline plan application, and I can't remember the route, but I've got a feeling it's going to be pumped north of the site. I know there was capacity in the existing system. They confirmed that. What I will have to do is get back to you if that's okay. I don't know the actual answer, obviously, and it's all to come out in the detailed design as well. In terms of the right turn lane, yeah, as you said, sorry, the initial design was for a simple T-junction. We've got a different design team on board now, and they've already started asking me questions about right turn lanes and visibility. So that would all be looked at going forward. In terms of the visual aspects, we did produce a visual impact assessment of the site as part of the outline plan application. And I know we'll have to produce one as well going forward. So that will be taken on board. I'm hoping to get some nice, once we start working up the site layout, we'll get some nice visuals. Obviously, the site, from as you saw from my first slide, the site is very prominent and it sits quite high up. And I intend to be on weekends looking up from town, and you will be able to see the development from certain aspects. So that will obviously be taken on board, and I know the national parks will be very keen. The planners will be very keen on that we get it right. In terms of the stormwater runoff, I was aware that it is an issue at present. We will be undertaking more site investigation. Obviously, with SUD's policy at the moment, we would look to soak all of the rainwater to site, and we will have sort of contingency plans for getting water off site. We wouldn't want to make the situation any worse at all. So all your points taken on board. A lot of them will be answered as part of the detailed design, and I'll hopefully be able to update you on those in due course.
We're building a community here. It's not just about building properties for people to live in, and we're placemaking. So we need to take those things into account, that we want a community that works, so that if people do move into there in a 1-bedroom property and then their household increases in size, that they've got the opportunity to potentially stay in that area where they've laid down roots. So yeah, it's certainly something that we're very mindful of, because if you just took the figures, you'd say, right, okay, we need to, generally you'd say, right, we need to build any sites, we need to build 65% 1-bedroom properties, but we know that that's going to have a knock-on effect on tenancy management, on that placemaking, and on those communities. And like you say, building these for the future. It's not just for now; it's for the future as well. So we'll certainly be looking at those mixes and how we can make the best use of the land that is available for us to develop on as well. I mean, Chris mentioned about terracing from a net zero carbon perspective, but that also allows us to slightly increase density as well. So, you know, the original planning for those numbers, I imagine it is going to change slightly in terms of the numbers that we'll be delivering onto the site, but we'll certainly be looking at that as a community and how we can build it effectively, so that, as Michelle suggested, you know, the self-build, the shared ownership, the market housing are all mixed together. In terms of the self-build, yeah, it's not the Grand Design's approach to self-build, where we'll be getting wonderful things with helipads and different things put on them. There will be a kind of a pattern book approach to it, so that it can work as part of the planning process. We'll probably say that, you know, on such and such a plot, you could potentially build house types A, B, and C. And then it will allow flexibility in terms of maybe how the internals are arranged, more so than the outside, so that when you're looking at the self-builds should not stand out as being, or they're completely different from the rest of the development here. It should all form part of that vernacular of property design. So that's in theory how it works, and we'll be working with Welsh Government to ensure that we're doing what we can to make sure that that is what happens with those.
I think there's a fear that this the affordable housing will reduce. There seems to be an idea that this is a developer developing the site, and that, you know, as costs increase, they'll reduce the affordable housing element. So we need to be clear that this is a council development building council houses. We need to move away from that term affordable housing, because that has so many different views to so many different people. This is first and foremost a council housing site that will be, you know, forever let to people on the housing register. You know, and again, as Marcus said, that this is funded through the HRA in various forms of funding that we get, not through sort of taxpayers' money. And, you know, just again, highlighting the level of need within Tenby. I know that there are some people who are talking much about the need for, you know, children to play on this site, but if we don't build these houses, there'll be no children left in Tenby that want to play on the site, and that's where we are really, I think, with housing in some of these coastal areas. So, you know, this development is really important. But thanks for your time today, everyone. Thanks for your views. And if there's anything that we haven't got through today, there's, this is just the first stage really in engaging with you as local members. There'll be further opportunities as we move along the various stages of the development. But if there's anything that you think of after today, or when you're talking to some of your community councils, people like John and David, your community councils, we can engage with them if that's something that you think that we should do. Or if your residents give you anything that you think is useful, we can feed that in as well.